This is the EVO 4 2-channel, very small audio interface. Let's take a look at the outside, see what it has to offer, then we'll plug it in, run a mic through it so you can hear it and talk about the features, what I like and what I don't like. Full disclosure, Audient sent this out to me after they asked me if I wanted to review it. It looked cool, I said yes, so they sent it to me. So it's an all plastic body. I was a little concerned with some of the other reviews I saw. It does have a little give to it, but overall, I think on your desktop, this would be just fine. You could still stuff it in a bag. I think it's gonna hold up. So the control section of the device is actually not the front, it's the top. It sits on your desk like this, which I'll show you. You've got the rubberized feet on the opposite side. First, I thought I'd want it like this, but this would not be a comfortable way to control it. So I get it. And then the XLRs are on the back. The headphone jack here is in front, and there's a DI input for guitars. All right, now I'm gonna plug this in, put a mic into it so that the audio you're getting is coming from the EVO 4, and then we'll run through what all of these different buttons do. All right, got the EVO 4 plugged in via USB-C to the MacBook, and it is running off of the power that the MacBook is supplying. Now, if you're gonna try to use this with a tablet or a phone, a mobile device, it will do that, it's class compliant, but you're going to need a USB hub that supplies its own power to give it enough juice for the EVO 4 to be powered. Again, we have 48 volts of phantom power available here to 2 different channels, so it's gonna need all that power to run the EVO 4 from a smart device, and so you'll need a powered USB hub. So you're seeing I have the Shure SM7B plugged in, it's going into channel 1. I have the AT4053B hypercardioid condenser going into channel 2. So we're getting 2 separate channels of audio into the computer, and that's fantastic because we want to record those separately. We can choose which one we want to use in post. You'll be hearing some of the hypercardioid and some of the SM7B as I go back and forth in this video. So 2 separate tracks that we can choose between. We can post-process separately, so a multi-channel, 2-channel device with the EVO 4. And I did no processing on the audio. What you're hearing is straight out of these mics into the computer, and then I raised the level in post-production so that we have proper levels for the video. And so these inputs are combination jacks. Right now we're using XLR, but you can interface with 1/4-inch line level connections for any external gear that you might want to plug in. If you're doing voiceover, podcast streaming, if you're using hardware like a DBX 286S, which I have, we can go directly into this device and then interface the computer. Important to know, if you're using the DI, that then routes to channel 1, so you still have 2 channels, the DI on channel 1 and whatever you're putting into channel 2, probably a microphone. Let's take a look at the features and the controls here on the EVO 4, starting with the 48 volts phantom power button. And notice this, I have the hypercardioid condenser microphone on channel 2, and then you see the 48 volts light up, and that's because this is a condenser. It does need 48 volts of phantom power. But then channel 1 for my Shure SM7B, it's a dynamic microphone. It doesn't need phantom power, so we switch to that, and the 48 volts is turned off. So really cool that you can select which channels get the 48 volts phantom power. Sometimes phantom power is on and it goes to all channels. But on the EVO, you can make the selection to have it on or off for each channel. Related to the inputs, and perhaps most important to me, are the preamps, and these are really good. They supply 58 dB of gain, and this mic is notorious for needing lots of gain, so it's not a very sensitive microphone. And again, it's being powered just by the preamp, not the 48 volts of phantom power. So this mic up here is more sensitive, and also we're supplying power for it, so I don't have to put the gain up so high. But on the SM7B, I have the gain almost all the way, and on this, we don't know exactly what that is, but it's about 95%, so we're probably using about 55 dBs of that gain, and as you can hear, it's clean. Anything you're hearing is my environment, so if I'm quiet for a second, you'll hear some stuff. I hear a noise floor, but from what I can tell, it's not coming from the EVO 4. It's not hiss off the preamp. That is just noise you're hearing from either the microphone, which can have some self noise, or the environment you're in. And it's certainly in this case, the environment that I'm in. This light that I have right here has a fan in it, and the MacBook has a fan as well. So we're probably hearing a little bit of that. If the preamps aren't any good, that's one of the first things I check because I don't need to go any further than bad preamps. So a device like that is out of here. The EVO 4 preamps seem to be really nice. And the EVO 4 comes with some basic audio editing software, so it'll allow you to record, it'll allow you to mix and master your podcast, VO, whatever you're producing for audio. So that's a nice addition. And in that software, if you have software that is capable, you can control the gain of the preamp on the device from the software. So not something that I typically do, but it's there if that is of interest to you. And then going back to the controls for each channel, if you hold and press for 2 seconds, it will go and mute the channel. It'll then flash, letting you know that channel is muted. So I like the visual indicator. It's also nice that I can press a button and get that feature. And then just press and hold again for less than 2 seconds, and it's unmuted. All right, let's talk about this big green button here. It's much bigger than the rest of the buttons, and it's green, so it definitely sticks out. This is a unique offering to the EVO 4, kind of, in this price range. So this is Smartgain. It'll set the gain for your preamps. I talked about the amount of gain that this mic needs versus the amount of gain this mic needs. So if you aren't familiar with doing that, this device will do that for you. And I actually have another audio interface, but it's about $1,000 roll-in audio interface, and it also has a gain function like this, an automatic gain. They call it Auto Sense, but in this case, it's Smartgain, and you won't see this in other interfaces that cost around the same, somewhere around $100, $120 US at the time of this video. So this can be a cool feature, but the reason this feature works, in my opinion, is because going back to those preamps, they are good all the way through their range. So I don't have to worry about where the Smartgain sets my gain level at. I know my audio's going to be good. And the Smartgain is going to make it easy to leave yourself with enough headroom so you don't peak the audio, and it'll set it high enough so you have a good signal to noise ratio. So your signal, my voice, is loud enough over the noise floor that even when we bring it up in post-production for our final podcast, voiceover, or video, you won't be bringing up a bunch of noise. So to use this, all you have to do is press the Smartgain button, select the channel that you want to gain, and in fact, you can actually select 2 channels at the same time and do them both at once. As you see here, I have 2 microphones, so we could do it simultaneously. So if I was to press the Smartgain button, press both of these buttons, and then press the Smartgain button again, we're now setting gain. So you want to talk and then raise your voice a little bit to be the loudest point of your speech, so it has that dynamic range of how loud you're going to get and sort of how soft you're going to talk, and the medium in between. Now you're hearing the microphone on the camera because this goes mute when it's setting the gains. It doesn't have the gain yet, so it's trying to find it. And then once it gets it, it'll stop flashing red, it'll flash green, and our gains are set. So for channel 1, it has me pretty much 100%. And I'm actually going to take manual control of that and back off just a little bit because I can. And then channel 2 with the phantom power on for the condenser microphone, it has it around 55%. And that pretty much matches where I had set it manually before we did that process. So very smart, it works very well. I heard a good example of how you would use this if you knew how to set gain. One of the product people at Audient was talking about how, and this applies to podcasters, if you had a voiceover booth and it was separate from your computer, because you do want to get away from your fan if possible. So if the computer's across the room, your voiceover station, your microphone, whatever is on the other side of the room, you could hit the Smartgain, go to your microphone, do your talking, so while it's setting, and then it sets it for you without having to keep going back and forth over and over again to find the right levels. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to think about it for people who know how to set gain already. Maybe just another way you'd use it if you were already familiar with gain staging. So for me, I think it's a cool feature. I don't think it's game changing, but if it is interesting to you, then that is a unique feature of the EVO 4, and that would maybe be one reason why you would choose this over another device that is of equal cost. And another thing about the Smartgain, just in case you're curious, because questions pop into my head all the time, and even when I know something about audio, you still have to wonder, because it's called Smartgain, and they talk about how it protects you from clipping the audio, from it being too loud, which is where the audio gets ruined. Is it also setting a limiter of some kind? Is it actually protecting you from that upper level. It's not. It's just producing that headroom that we talked about. It's leaving you enough room to get loud and not peak. But there is no kind of limiter engaged or anything that's happening just by setting the smart gain. It is really just where on the gain range it's going to set you. If you have a pair of headphones plugged in like I do now, and you have monitors plugged in, it'll mute the monitors. It's called smart muting, so that you'll have some protection since you've put headphones on your head. If your monitors were open and then you cranked up the gain and that fed back through the monitors into your ears, that could be bad. But I would prefer that it was implemented better, because one thing I do all day long is I go from headphones to my monitors. So in this case, with the EVO 4, you have to unplug your headphones in order to access the monitors. Now the EVO 8 is supposed to be able to do both of these things in case you're sending something like a monitor mix and you're actually listening to your own mix when you're producing. I don't know how they're going to do that because the buttons look the same. So personally, I would love if I could double tap the volume knob here and then get access to mute the monitors, or some solution where I didn't have to unplug my headphones. I'd rather just take my headphones off, set them on the desk, and then listen to my monitors. And then when I want to go back into headphones, I would just go right back into headphones. That's how I work all day long. So not my favorite, even though it is a feature they say on the EVO 4. I prefer the ability to do that right here on the EVO 4 because you can control everything else. So if that's something that is critical to you, either this device wouldn't be for you, or you'd want to go up to the EVO 8 because it's supposed to have that kind of control. So this mix button also does a couple things. It's got a couple little faders on it. It lets you do two things. And I press it the first time, it lets me blend from monitoring direct. So hearing my microphone, what's going into the EVO, no latency because I'm monitoring exactly what's going in, all the way to I could switch it over to the other side where I don't hear myself and I only get playback on the computer. Now, if you want both those things, if you're doing an interview, this has loopback in it, which I'll talk about, and you want to hear yourself and the participant, you would then set the mix knob to somewhere in the middle, but I could give a little bit more of myself and a little bit less of the playback, or a little bit more of the guest, the playback, and less of myself, just depending on volume levels and where you want to set that. So really nice feature. I love being able to manually blend the direct input that I'm monitoring and the playback from the computer. There was a blend knob like this on the Focusrite 2i4, and I really love just being able to reach out and turn that knob to get the blend of monitoring that I wanted. They move that into software, and I'm definitely not a fan of that. So anytime I can do that right on the device, I'm super happy. And since I have two microphones going on here, these inputs can be panned left and right in your headphones. So if I hold down the blend knob or the mix knob and I start turning the dial, I start to get this microphone in my left ear and this microphone in my right ear. Although I feel like I hear a considerable amount of bleed over from one or the other, I don't feel like I can isolate one or the other right into each earpiece, but you can blend them. And then of course the volume knob, pretty self-explanatory. You click that and you get access on the big single button to your volume control of what I'm monitoring right now. And I'm going to turn it up a little bit. And then if you hold it down for 2 seconds, it mutes it. So I cannot hear anything coming back into my headphones. So then I hold it again and it's unmuted. Also, again, like the channels, if you hold and mute, it will flash indicating that it's on mute. So I like that visual indicator. Then the one gotcha that I experienced on this device is the reason my phone is across the room. This seems to pick up, at least in my case, considerable amount of electronic interference. So if your phone is within a foot or less of this device and it's transmitting, you can definitely hear it in the device, which then goes into your audio. And that's not good. So something to be aware of. I did ask other reviewers. They weren't experiencing the same thing. One trusted reviewer did get some interference when he tried it out. So something to be aware of. Audient makes great gear, so I'm hoping they'll address this issue. But if this is a device you're considering getting into, you want to keep electronic devices like your computer on an iMac. This could sit right underneath, but you'd want to make sure it's not interfering with the device. And certainly if you have a phone, keep it further away from the device so it does not pick up that interference. And finally, not found on the outside of the box, what's inside is called loopback. And what this allows you to do is record basically anything from your computer into your DAW. So if you're using some type of voice communication software for having an interview or having a co-host for your podcast or your voiceover or your video, you can record that audio into your DAW. I'm seeing this more and more on the audio interfaces in this price range, but before that, you could not record what was coming into the audio interface from your computer. So that's a really nice feature to have. There are browser recording options that you could use. Skype has recording software, but this is nice in that you can pull in any software on your computer and record it to your DAW. You're not limited to some third-party recorder. So who would buy the EVO 4? If you're a content creator, podcaster, YouTuber, online audio, video, whatever you're doing, this could be a good device because it is so portable, right? Easily put this in your bag and go, and you have a 2-channel audio interface. If you were comparing this against something like the Rodecaster Pro, those don't really compare to me because the price is so different and because they are just different devices. Rodecaster Pro being more of a mixer, this being an audio interface, and the prices, again, so far apart that they're not really in the same category. So if you need a Rodecaster Pro, you're obviously looking at that and not one of these. If you're looking at something like Behringer, Focusrite, those other smaller audio interfaces, that's where this sits, right? The build is not as good as maybe a Focusrite. You might be able to get the loopback feature for a more affordable price in the EVO. The preamps of both are really good. The Smartgain feature might appeal to you enough to choose this over the Focusrite, but both equally good devices. Low latency, USB power, good preamps. It's a cool device. The RF issue is a big deal to me. I hope that they can fix that. I do have a few more challenges here in this space, but again, in my experience, getting even a phone anywhere near it was really transmitting through to the device. So that is something you need to be aware of if you're looking into this, and then you want to mitigate those factors by keeping it away from your computer, keeping it away from your phone, and then you shouldn't have any problems because the preamps are great. They power most dynamic microphones, microphones that need lots of gain. This does it really well, and it sounds great all around. So if the features we went through here appeal to you, they work for your setup, it's always most important what you're trying to do with the device, then the EVO 4 is something to go and check out. So many great audio focused channels on here, Podcastage, Julian Krause, Curtis Judd. You got to check out all of these channels, see the experience they had with the EVO 4, and then make your decision. Definitely always shop around. Don't just take one review's advice. And then let me know what gear you're using. Would this be something that you are interested in? Do you want me to test something out? I'm gonna have this device here. So if there's another test you would like me to try or a question I didn't answer, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you next time.